Today's webinar is entitled Top 10 Branding Bombshells. Our presenter today is Cheri Mahon, Corporate Consultant and Adjunct Professor of Marketing at RIT. Cheri is a consultant that helps clients with their marketing and communications. She has served as a senior executive for several startup companies with new technology products and led their communications through IPO into growing publicly traded companies. She was VP of Communications and Investor Relations at Arista Power, and before that, Director of Investor Relations and Communications at Document Security Systems. In 2011, she earned her EMBA at the Saunders College of Business here at RIT and is an adjunct professor for the college. She is an active member in the community by serving on the board of directors of CCCS of Rochester, the YWCA, and numerous other nonprofit causes. In 2012, she was chosen as honoree for RWN's prestigious W Award. She is a published author and is currently working on another book to be released in 2015. Take it away, Cheri.
Thank you, Natalie, and thank you, everybody, for joining us during your lunchtime here today. I'm hoping the next 45 minutes to an hour will be entertaining and informative for you. Please feel free to ask questions. Depending on the questions that pop up, I might answer them during the presentation or wait till the end. There will definitely be time at the end to answer some of your questions. And with that, let's get started. First of all, just quickly go through what the agenda is today. I'm going to review what is branding, and some of you may already know what branding is, but I'm really going to break it down into pieces for you and give you a good definition of what branding is. And then some of the companies that we're going to go through should be names that most of you know. Chipotle is the number one. Abercrombie & Fitch and Lululemon I placed together because their branding bombshell was a similar mistake that they've both made. Louboutin is the next one. That's a high-end shoe company. Burger King is number 5. Panasonic is number 6. Number 7 is Gap, the clothing store. And 8's LG, the cell phone company that we're going to talk about a marketing stunt gone bad. Weight Watchers is number 9, and I don't think any major brand list can be complete without talking about Starbucks a little bit. I've also placed the resources at the end if anyone wants to review further in depth some of the stories that I'm going to tell you today. And again, we'll have time at the end for some Q&A. So what exactly does branding mean? So branding in your brand is a promise to your customer. It tells them what they can expect from your products and your services, and it definitely differentiates your offering from that of your competitors. Your brand should be imitative of who you are, who you want to be, and who people perceive you to be. So branding, in essence, is the perceived quality and emotional attachment that people have to your company and products. So the basis of your brand is your logo. Your logo makes a statement by the colors and the font, which you'll see in the Gap case, and design chosen. It's important that you choose colors, fonts, and a design that delivers the message that you want to stand for. It's also important that you choose safe colors, fonts, and designs, as you'll see, that all of your customers can resonate with. Your website, packaging, and promotional materials, all of which should integrate your logo, communicate your brand. Your brand strategy is how, what, where, when, and to whom you plan on communicating and delivering your branding messages to. Where you choose to advertise is part of your brand strategy. So as you'll see, Chipotle does not choose to advertise within their stores. Your distribution channels are also part of your brand strategy. And what you communicate visually and verbally is part of your brand strategy as well. Consistent strategic branding leads to a strong brand equity. So you'll also hear the term brand equity tossed around a bit within branding communities, which means the added value brought to your company's products or services that allows you to charge more for your brand than what an identical unbranded product could command. So the most obvious example of this is Coca-Cola versus a generic soda pop, or pop, depending on where you're from here in the U.S. Because Coca-Cola has built a large amount of brand equity, the value of the brand is extraordinarily high, and some industry experts have placed a dollar value on their brands. They can charge more for the product, and customers are willing to pay that higher price. The added value intrinsic to brand equity frequently comes in the form of perceived quality or emotional attachment. So again, you're hearing from me perceived quality and emotional attachment when in relation to what is branding. For example, Nike associates its products with star athletes, hoping customers will transfer their emotional attachment from the athlete to the product. For Nike, it's not just the shoe's features that sell the shoe. Also, another example of celebrity use is Dr. Dre with his headphones. Dr. Dre literally created the headphone market when he developed his Dr. Dre Beats headphones. He started using sports stars to demonstrate the use of these headphones, and since then the headphone market has grown by the millions and billions, to the point that they've actually been since bought out. So now that we know what branding is, let's move on to our 10 branding stories today. Chipotle's been a favorite of mine to talk about the last couple of years because the end of their story has yet to be determined. This year, during some shareholder activists trying to get Chipotle to report more about what they do with their food and with their statements, has really started to bring this brand story into some type of culmination. And hopefully within the next year, we'll see how it comes to fruition or not. So basically, Chipotle has branding items right now that do not resonate across their platforms. It's an example of a brand that recently launched these several brand pieces without integrating with its physical locations, but you will see some of the brand pieces within their social media. So specifically last year, Chipotle developed and released a scarecrow campaign, which included a YouTube video that featured a cartoon character of a scarecrow worker, which represents the founder of Chipotle, and the worker is against factory farming. The video is very popular. It's won awards and has to date collected almost 14 million views. They've also developed several other videos, such as a farmer series, and all of these videos are delivering a message about their Food with Integrity mission statement. According to their website, Food with Integrity is, quote, their commitment to finding the very best ingredients raised with respect to the animals, the environment, and farmers. They say it means they source organic and local produce when practical, and I stress that, when practical, and they use dairy from cows raised without the use of synthetic hormones. Food with Integrity is a journey that started more than a decade ago and will never end, according to their website. But if you look around their actual stores, you'll find no evidence of the scarecrow marketing or the farmer series. Not printed on the bags, not on the napkins, not on the artwork on the walls, nor any of the signs. Nowhere within the stores do you see anything of the scarecrow or farmer character. In addition, there has recently been shareholder pressure, as I've mentioned, to provide a report of what Chipotle actually does to meet their messaging. So Chipotle is currently refusing to provide these statistics, and the Director of Communications has been quoted as saying, "Our marketing messaging is not where we are now, but where we want to be." So some consumers are starting to complain that Chipotle is not really organic or respectful to animals to the degree that their marketing portrays and is just being misleading. Some marketers wonder if the reason why Chipotle has not integrated their internet advertising with their physical locations is a legal maneuver to not associate themselves directly. So if there were a lawsuit alleging they're being misleading, They can say that they never said for sure that they were providing non-factory farm food, such as the scarecrow video portrays, and all organic items. So as a brand, when you spend a considerable amount of resources on your branding pieces, a company should consider if that messaging can be, should be, and is integrating across all platforms, not just including within your website, but also within investor communications and physical locations. Consumers do not appreciate being misled, and that's the lesson that we're starting to see at Chipotle, even if you were careful with your wording. So again, with the "when practical" that the Food with Integrity statement makes, and then not explaining their definition of practical. You know, is there a price point that it's not practical? Their definition of local is 350 miles, and they supposedly get some of their produce locally, and I don't know about you, but I don't really consider New York City or the end of Pennsylvania into Virginia as locally sourced food. So Chipotle has some messaging integrating to do. Number 2 and 3 I put together, and Abercrombie and Fitch and Lululemon, both clothing retail companies, have a case of insensitive CEOs and leadership. So I'll start with the Abercrombie, but Mike Jeffries, the CEO, said in 2006 that their strategy was he only wanted to sell clothes to cool kids and not fat kids. So a lot of people, his quote exactly was, a lot of people don't belong in our clothes and they can't belong. Are we being exclusionary? Absolutely. Those companies that are in trouble are trying to target everybody, young, old, fat, and skinny. So this was originally said in 2006. He came out with a kind of half-hearted apology saying, well, sorry, but that's what our strategy is, and it's haunted them all the way up until 2013 when the scab was picked fresh because Lululemon's founder, Chip Wilson, showed the same insensitivity with some of his comments. He implied that yoga pants that are on women that are too big are the reason the pants can be see-through, and those women are not their target market. He's also said that plus-size clothing takes 30% more fabric to make, and that's a money-losing proposition for them that they don't even want to approach. He's also been quoted as saying that he originally named the company Lululemon partly because it was hard for the Japanese to pronounce, and he thought it was funny hearing them trying to pronounce it. So his numerous comments, of course, was an uproar. And they have since asked Chip Wilson to step down, and he has. So what should you do if you are the marketing or communications management of a company with insensitive leadership? As founder of Chip Wilson, as founder of Lululemon, of course, holds a power position as well as probably owns a significant portion of the company. And part of the deal was that he was going to be leadership of the company when they launched. So it's really difficult to say, hey, you know, get out. You don't know how to speak well to our customers. And he did feel the pressure and did step down eventually. But in the meantime, he caused a lot of damage by his insensitive comments. You know, some of the things that you should do is first you should make sure that your marketing communications are working closely together to provide consistent messaging. Your communications and marketing teams should know exactly what the other team is doing, and the work they produce should show synchronous messaging. If you're having investor relations teams work together, they should also be included on this. If you have a social media team that's not involved in the team meetings, you're just lining yourself up for delivering messaging that's not consistent with the brand. So they should be included in all of the meetings. It should be really, really a group effort to be consistent with the messaging. Secondly, and this is a very common practice, most CEOs have coaches, and they have multiple coaches. You should provide coaching to any of the leadership that wants to be, that's up for being coached, and also that's going to be making public statements. It's important that they understand Reg FD if there's a public company involved, and they are not allowed to say statements without being put out to the public in general. You can't just tell one analyst a piece of information without publicly releasing it. So there's coaching that needs to be involved within leadership. If practical, your legal counsel should also review any scripts and marketing messaging to point out any issues that you may not foresee. If you have leadership that's resistant to coaching, you should certainly share some examples of these mistakes that leadership has made. It's certainly something that can happen to everyone, and usually leadership will be open to the coaching, and once they see this, you'll know. They definitely want to do their best and not be embarrassed. So what to do in the case of a backlash by consumers and media of something that was said? The common practice is to apologize, apologize, apologize. The problem with apologizing is so many of them cannot get it right. There's definitely an art to apologizing. You have to sincerely apologize, and you have to make a change in your show of effort that your apology is sincere. If your leadership cannot sincerely apologize and shoulder the burden of making a mistake, consumers will definitely know this and not forgive. Usually is showing that you mean the apology will go a long ways in making it right. So for example, Lululemon accomplished this by having the founder step down. They may have also considered bringing more plus-size clothes out to the floor as part of the strategy to make amends. And from what I understand, this has since happened. And lastly, you probably have heard, bad publicity can still be good publicity. Brand awareness is definitely built through any publicity. You also have to understand that things can, although not always, blow over. And by focusing on moving forward is sometimes the best you can do for your company and brand. So there's the story of Abercrombie & Fitch and Lululemon and insensitive leadership. So number 4 is Louboutins. For those of you that are unaware, Louboutins are high-end shoes with a red sole. You have to be ready to protect the things that make your brand a brand. Marks such as McDonald's Golden Arches and like Swish, taglines, names, and yes, even color are all items that you might discover need protecting from your competitors. If you let your competitors use your marks, your customers will be confused. You also lose some of your brand equity value. Tiffany Blue is one such prominent example with their Robin Blue that so many consumers identify with Tiffany products. And, you know, again, here is Louboutins. These high-end shoes can cost anywhere from $500 to thousands of dollars per pair. And they were made by an individual named Christian Louboutin. And celebrities have been noted on the red carpet to be wearing their, quote, Louboutins, my Louboutins, their Louboutins. And even counterfeiters in China have started to reproduce and sell some of the line. So what happened? In 2011, he sued YSL for using red soles on the bottom of their red pumps. So imagine an all-red shoe. He demanded $1 million in damages, and it was based on a trademark that was granted to him in 2008 from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. And the trademark stated that Louboutin has exclusive right to make red-soled shoes for women's high-fashion designer footwear. So after so many months, it was 15 or 17 months, the case was resolved in 2013 when a New York Federal Court of Appeals decided that Louboutin is entitled to the trademark on red soles, except where the entire shoe is red, like YSL. YSL said, okay, fine, but no designer should be able to monopolize a color in fashion. Again, you have to be ready to protect your brand and all the pieces of your brand, and that could include color. Number 5, Burger King, sticking to a creepy mascot during slumping sales. For 7 years, Burger King used the King, a creepy-looking character that visited people in their bedrooms unexpectedly and spied as their mascot for marketing messages. In 2011, the beginning of 2011, the King abdicated his throne, and Burger King announced that it was finally discontinuing appearances of the sneaky, large-headed mascot in an attempt to revamp its advertising strategy. The character's farewell was part of the struggling fast food giant's effort to, quote, refocus its marketing, quote, in order to reach new customers after years of declining sales. The new series of ads is keeping the focus on Burger King burgers. So many of us can look back and say, wow, they stuck with that King for 7 years. It was long overdue. The character debuted in 2003 and definitely was blamed by many sources as part of the issue with Burger King, including the Atlantic and Gawker, which noted that the commercials were bizarre and vaguely disturbing. So even Associated Press's impartial bit made the King seem like a huge law-breaking nuisance that nobody's going to miss, noting that he has recently become more prevalent and somewhat creepy presence in ads, showing up people's beds and peeping in their windows. So everybody knew that this mascot was creepy, but apparently not Burger King marketing management, because they stuck with him for 7 years. He did manage to take a life on his own by appeared in several Xbox 360 games and inspired some satirical internet memes and even got its own Simpson incarnation. So because of all the ads include situations that in real life would result in pepper spray, it's rather surprising that Burger King stuck by him for almost a decade. The lesson for a mascot that does not resonate for consumers is know when to fold them. Too many times in corporate history, losing projects are continuously backed and supported because people are reluctant to let something invested in go. Once you put in so much money and time and effort, it's really, really hard to see that something's not working and let it go. Sometimes there's egos involved, and they just can't let a project go. So the case of Burger King should have been 7 years with a creepy mascot was way too much for the consumers. Moving on. Number 6 story, Branding Bombshell by Panasonic. So for this branding bombshell, you have to imagine yourself back in the 90s. Japanese engineers at Panasonic were way ahead of the curve. And in 1996, when many people were still adapting to a mouse, they developed a touchscreen PC for the home market. Panasonic needed a way to brand a touchy-feely new PC that would appeal to your average, not tech-savvy customer. They wanted to tout their PC's accessibility and ease of use, and they needed a mascot to demonstrate that computers were not arcane devices used only by brainiac scientists and the socially awkward. So their choice of a mascot, Woody Woodpecker. Woody Woodpecker might seem like a relic to those of us that are American with our American cartoons, but he was huge in the 90s in Japan. So after securing the rights to using Mr. Woodpecker and conducting an amount of research so deep that scientists are still studying and marketers are still studying today what happens, Panasonic proudly dubbed their new computer the Woody. In addition to their touchscreen capability, they wanted to set it apart. So in addition, they decided to name the feature Touch Woody. But it gets better. Panasonic was all ready to launch the touchscreen PC with an ad campaign with the catchy slogan, Touch Woody, the Internet's Pecker. So Panasonic had no clue that anything was wrong with the slogan until the day before the ads were set to launch, the day before. So an American staff member decided to step up and explain why foreign journalists were snickering and informed the marketing management executives of the sexual slang connotations of Mr. Woodpecker here in the U.S. So stunned and embarrassed, Japanese Panasonic executives immediately postponed the product launch in order to retool their marketing efforts. And they decided it was too late to rename the system and instead simply adjusted the name of the touchscreen feature from Touch Woody to the more respectable Woody Touchscreen. And still hyped an Internet Pecker online support function. And that, folks, is how years of research and technological innovation can be completely negated by the power of one accidental sexual reference. Way to go, Panasonic. Number 7, Gap. Spending millions, of course, and brought into the world on October 4th, 2010, Gap's new logo was supposed to signify Gap's transition from classic American design to modern, sexy, and cool, according to company spokesperson Louise Callagee. But the gads of graphic design had other plans. It looks like the emblem of some failed low-fare spinoff of a major airline, wrote Slate's Tom Skoka. Refinery 29 compared the logo to, quote, that awkward cap sleeve tee with the rhinestone letters you find while thrift shopping that's neither vintage nor new and definitely not cool. The advent of a create-your-own Gap logo website called Crap Logo Yourself dragged the design ever closer to the brink of death. And I checked right before this presentation, and that website is still up if you wanted to mess around and have some interesting logos. Crap Logo Yourself is what it's called. After suffering emotional injuries sustained upon reading the Twitter feed, the infantile imprint was rushed to Facebook, where it underwent an emergency resuscitation attempt by asking for consumers to do the work of providing a logo. Gap posted, quote, we know this logo created a lot of buzz, and we're thrilled to see passionate debates unfolding. So much so, we're asking you to share your designs. We love our version, but we'd like to see other ideas. So stay tuned for details in the next few days on this crowdsourcing project. More than 1,000 people left comments on Gap's Facebook page, and a majority of them were very mean. Crowdsourcing is still a dirty word. This statement only made matters worse and was a thinly veiled attempt to backtrack on the new logo's prominence, and it left Gap with egg on their face. This looked like a poorly conceived spin doctoring that it was, and didn't jive with the Gap brand or with its strategic plan. The only thing the design community hates worse than poorly executed work is poorly executed free work. In a moment where Gap's design acumen was questioned, this abandoned idea definitely just raised the hackles of brand designers, who would have been more understanding of how difficult this process was, but the way that they communicated it and asked for crowdsourcing help was just to them despicable. So Mark Hansen, the Gap brand president in North America, said, quote, we learned a lot in this process. We are clear that we did not go about this in the right way. We recognize that we missed the opportunity to engage with the online community. This wasn't the right project at the right time for crowdsourcing. So details would come less than 1 week later, and crowdsourcing came never. Spokeswoman Louise Callagee said again, we've learned just how much energy there is around our brand, and after that thought, we decided to go back to our iconic blue box logo. So spending millions again to change the logo and the bags and the store signs again, they did go back to the iconic blue logo that you still see today. As many of you may know, Gap's been suffering and was suffering then in 2010, slumping sales, and management thought a rebranding would revive the brand, but they went about it the wrong way. Sometimes rebranding can be used to revive a brand and also bring more brand awareness to your company. So some of the lessons, other than lackluster execution, most of the problems were caused by Gap's handling of the logo. From an outside perspective, it seemed like the organization did not fully support the new design. Usually, when a large company is going to debut a logo, they do a press release. They had little of the usual press release and fanfare that they normally do with logos. And regardless of whether this was a social media experiment or just cold feet on Gap's part, it gave off an uncertain impression. And something consumers do not like is uncertain impressions. As soon as the negative reaction sparked online, Gap was quick to backtrack and suggesting that sharing of other ideas was always part of this logo's launch, which was not true, and consumers saw right through that. When that didn't fly and criticism grew even more, Gap ultimately scrapped the end result. This waffling and morphing of the company line made the change feel even worse. Their design company, Laird & Partners, was twisting in the wind after all of Gap executive management had okayed this logo, and then the quick way that they washed its hands of its logo definitely said that there was not true internal support of this logo. Maybe it's just a sign of a fearful executive team, and consumers can smell that. They were unwilling to commit to a path and stick to it. So stick to a path, stick to your design. If you've done the research and you know it's a good logo, stick to it. Don't change your mind. A brave and committed client who brings something new into the marketplace often has to ride out waves of criticism, and Gap was just not willing to do so. All right, so number 8, LG, and this is a quick one. Publicity events for new products are definitely good ideas, but sometimes you can't think through everything that's going to occur. So in August 2013, LG was the latest Android powerhouse with the G2, had the Korean conglomerate releasing a batch of 1,000 helium balloons, and inside them there were free vouchers for the phone. Well, what they didn't really prepare for was several people in the crowd had BB guns and decided to shoot at these balloons, and well, 20 people were injured in the process with BB guns. LG did a very, very sincere apology. It paid for all of the medical expenses of everybody that was hit, and of course canceled all future G in the Cloud events. And again, something that you may have been able to think of ahead of time, but was not. So marketing stunts can go very, very wrong. You really have to think through of all the possibilities that could happen. And I think to all of us, it probably sounds like a great idea, and none of us would have expected people to actually come and bring guns to the crowd. But there was also the case of CashTomato.com, who decided to give out $20 bills in New York City, and the employee that was delivering this stack of cash was so afraid because there's a huge crowd that showed up, ended up throwing the bag and running down the street. And you can look online and see the picture of this street corner in New York City. It's just covered in people. There's not even an empty space of all these people that showed up to try to get cash. So you have to be really, really careful and think through marketing stunts because they can be very dangerous. All right, branding bombshell number 9 comes from Weight Watchers. So through a combination of B-list celebrity spokespeople and a complicated points system that I can't understand, Weight Watchers have succeeded in becoming nearly synonymous with weight loss. But that's not to say that they haven't made some marketing blunders along the way, perhaps the most notable being a gruesome coincidence that occurred in 1997. That's the year Weight Watchers kicked off a brand new ad campaign featuring the then Princess of the UK, Sarah, Duchess of York, popularly known as the Fergie who's not a black eyed pea. The ad featured a beaming Fergie touting the benefits of Weight Watchers, namely its ability to help you watch your weight, under the bold declaration that losing weight was, quote, harder than outrunning the paparazzi, unquote. Uh-oh, if you can think back to the top news story in 1997, you'll remember that clone sheep and Mars robots and crazy comet cults all played second fiddle to the story of Princess Diana's death in a tragic car accident, which was a result of being chased to the streets of Paris by paparazzi. And here we have people getting this ad in the mail the very next day after the accident. So you would say, okay, what were they thinking? How could they possibly think this? Well, they weren't time-traveling wizards. The campaign had been in the works for long before they actually released it, and they just mailed out the flyers bearing the slogan. They were also scheduled to do tons of TV and other media the following week, and they also had press in magazines such as Glamour and Self, and the ads and Glamour and Self, but not the TV ads, actually came out. So It was an immensely embarrassing situation, not just for the company, but for Duchess of York, Fergie. And people were very confused. Was presumably thought the news of Diana's death itself was part of some marketing viral stunt. So the lesson here is you can't foresee every obstacle or road bump that might occur during any ad campaign. You can try to figure it out, but I do think that their management there and their marketing team did not expect, Princess Di to die that way and then their ad to be mailed the next day. So the best thing you can do is be prepared to apologize if a mistake does occur, and they did do that, and they were able to recover from that bombshell that occurred. Number 10, Starbucks. So every advertiser's worst nightmare, coming up with a campaign that is a tragedy, that reminds people of a tragedy, or worse, looks like you're making fun of a tragedy. So it's one thing if you can look at the ad and see where people are being too sensitive, but in the case of Starbucks's poster that they came out with, you'll see that it's amazing that this made it past their marketing team. Starbucks released, I think it was less than a year after 9/11, this poster that you see. It seemingly is an innocuous image. It features the two standing cups and then these blades of grass that look like smaller buildings. And the part that kind of topped it all off was this dragonfly that looks like it's going to fly into the cups. Now, mind you, this was not even a year after 9/11, so these posters were printed. They were in all these Starbucks across the U.S., and the real kicker was the tagline, which is "Collapse into Cool." Starbucks immediately responded to the backlash by having all the posters taken down and putting out a sincere apology. It was never revealed how much background research or focus groups that Starbucks may or may not have done, but my guess is that they did not do any focus groups with this poster, because I think looking at it that many of us can see that this would have reminded us of 9/11. So an example of Starbucks needing to do more additional market research in a focus group could have helped. So employ some focus groups in any of your branding or advertising pieces that you're going to do. So I want to go a little bit more about branding in general and try to summarize it all up. Ways that you can build brands, continue to support brands that you have within your company or products. And really defining your brand is like a journey of business self-discovery. It can be difficult, time-consuming, and uncomfortable. I've been in branding sessions that have lasted 8 minutes, and I have been in branding sessions that have lasted a very long 8 months. It requires, at the very least, that you answer some of these questions. So what is your company's mission? And so many people try to skip over this part because they feel they don't have time. But it is really, really important to stop and think, what is your company's mission? What are the benefits of your products or services? And take that a step further and say, who do you serve? Who are your customers? Who wants those benefits of your products and services? What do your customers already think of your company or particular product that you're thinking about branding more? What qualities do you want people to associate with your company? So make sure you do your research while you're defining your brand. You have to learn the needs, the habits, everything that your customers want. You have to really, really know who your customers are. And don't rely on what you think that they think, know what they think. And what I mean by this is do significant market research, do surveys, focus groups. All these things will help you understand. You think you know what they want, and that's not necessarily true. Get a great logo. I'm mentioning get a great logo, but place it everywhere. You also have to think that, on the internet, you can use the internet. It's a great social platform to test things out and to get feedback. Certainly don't ask for free help. But you have to understand that sometimes the internet can create this unique kind of like snarky hater behavior. that doesn't necessarily mirror real-life reactions. Scenarios such as Gap can show that such negativity and it piled on, and the one-liners and the spoofs that come out, it can really, really take away some meaningful feedback of how to develop something better. Once something builds into negative behavior online, it's really, really difficult to get true, unbiased feedback. So good brand managers and executives need to have the wisdom to know the difference and embrace the results of this. Another thing you can do is develop a great story with a hook about your company or the products, the new branding, and do a press release. You should send this to the distribution wires and also to the local media in case they don't see it on the distribution wires. You'll find that this also helps you with your SEO for your website, and any announcements are usually welcomed by local media. Should also integrate your brands. Branding extends to every aspect of your business, how you answer your phones, what your employees are wearing when you serve the customer, your email signature, everything. Don't miss anything. Don't follow Chipotle's lead. Put your branding on your paper materials, put it on your packaging, have some announcements that your advertising and marketing branding all match with your platforms and physical locations. You should have your brand integrated and consistent, and we'll go over consistent again. The other thing is create a voice for your company. Take the time to write down, along with when you're doing your mission statement, the voice needs to be applied to all your written communication as well as your visual imagery of all materials online and off. So if your brand's friendly, try to be conversational with this voice. Is it a high-end premium? Be more formal. So in the case of Louboutins, the boxes are these very well-made shoe boxes, and there's these handmade cloth bags that come with every pair of high heels. So their brand's really high-end premium, and all their pieces, all their marketing pieces, put that messaging across by their formality with their shoes and the packaging of the shoes. Develop a tagline. It should be concise, memorable, and of course meaningful. It should capture the essence of your brand if you can. And if you don't know how to do this, take a look at some other brands like Starbucks' tagline. Food with integrity with Chipotle is a great tagline. It's where they're going, not necessarily where they are. So think about how you want to give that message across, and all those little pieces need to be together. You should be true to your brand. That's one of the issues that Gap presented, was that they were pretty wishy-washy about that logo, and consumers do not like that. Everything that you use, your color scheme, your logo placement, everything should be consistent. So customers won't return to you if they feel that you're not keeping your brand promise, and that if they see that your branding is not integrated. You have to stand behind your design. If you've done the research and you have a solid branding mark, or ad idea, changing often just makes you look wishy-washy. Do your research is one of the a main one, and I put very, very important ones throughout here. There's no set of importance, but do your research. Don't think that you know what is right, and be consistent. This is definitely involves all of the above, and it's the most important tip on the list. If you don't do this, your attempts at establishing your brand and building brand equity like Coca-Cola has for over a century, you really, really need to be consistent. You can't have, this is harder the larger you are, like you can't have a LinkedIn page, a Twitter page, multiple different Facebook groups and pages that are not consistent branding. You're trying to build your brand equity. You need to have it literally branded in your customers' minds, and so therefore they'll know you in the future. And also, when bad things do happen and things that aren't expected, know that there's just some things you can't plan for. Be ready to sincerely apologize. Be ready for any obstacles that you can or any mistakes, and just know that there are some things you can't plan for. Things may blow over, but be ready to make changes if you need to for anything that you didn't plan for. So There's our summary on branding, and we'll take some time to take some of your questions.
Thank you so much, Cheri. I know that I got quite a few laughs out of the mistakes that brands have made, and I hope everybody listening did too. We do have some questions, and again, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat box. So we have one question from Sally, and Sally asks, in what ways should research be done on branding before launch that has been chosen, such as logos, taglines, product names, etc.?
Yes, okay. So usually when we have branding meetings, it includes most executive management, and any ones that I've been on, we try to pull in as many different people that we can. So we'll bring in friends, we'll bring in members of the community, we'll bring in all the different minds that we possibly can. It's kind of like the marketing company IPO, who has all sorts of different employees to help with their consulting products. And so we'll brainstorm, and we'll all go through different ideas. We usually try to look at 5 different ideas, and I'm talking about mostly logo choosing right now, but it does also mean tagline. And we all kind of bat it back and forth, and if something blaringly, obviously wrong comes up, then we throw whatever example that was wrong out. I would always go beyond this and try to do some focus group work. There's so many kind of times an ego gets involved, and you really love the colors, I don't know, blue and yellow. They got to stick to, you got to do blue and yellow. And you'll go and have a focus group, and somebody will point out that blue and yellow with the triangles that you needed with the logo are inconsistent in the country of, I don't know, the Philippines, or mean a different meaning in something else. So you really need to have as many minds as possible within the research for your marks, your logo. It really, and then volunteer for others that need this as well. Because it really, really helps to have as many minds as possible when you're choosing out any of your branding pieces.
Okay, we have a question from Mark. Mark asks, when do you recommend rebranding?
So Gap wasn't necessarily on the wrong path with rebranding. You'll see some companies that have very successfully rebranded when they had slumping sales, or when they do a merger, so like ExxonMobil, or when they're going to be doing a name change because the name wasn't originally well tied together with their strategy in the future. So for instance, some naming experts say, make up your own name, have the name as a company not mean anything. I remember the first time I heard this, I was like, what do you mean not mean anything? But if you think about it, like Microsoft, Facebook, those are all names with Facebook and Microsoft being portmanteaus, which are 2 words put together. They basically invented their own name. So, for instance, I use an example of a company called Windtamer that sold small wind turbines. Eventually, this company decided to sell solar and battery backup systems. So they no longer just sold small wind turbines, but they had this name Windtamer. Well, it was in their best interest, and they did, rebrand to Arista Power, which was kind of a name that meant, anything with power associated. So it could be wind power, solar power, battery backup systems, any solutions around those. And the name didn't really necessarily mean anything. Arista meant bus, and of course power meant power. So, but they tried to avoid specifically being a name of, like, for instance, Windtamer. So Windtamer became the name of the product that they made of the small wind turbines, and Arista Power became the company name. And that company name was pretty safe to then carry any products amongst that strategy product line. Facebook is a pretty, if you think about it, it's actually a pretty generic name, and so is Apple, very, very generic name. With that, they can carry any product line because, Apple doesn't necessarily mean iPods or Macs. It could certainly mean anything else that they wanted to buy and bring in with the fold of their company. So there is a little bit of an art to naming. You would think that it's easy, but it's not. You also have to do research to make sure, that you're not using somebody else's name ahead of time.
All right. We do have a question from Adam. Adam asks, do you have any tips for naming a company or product?
Yes, so there was a few there that I just gave. What I would do is I would get a big whiteboard, and I would write all the ideas down, or have your branding marketing company actually come up with some and give you the different options to choose from. And start with the company leadership, then start with company employees, voting on which ones that they think are best. And then you should take from your customers and community members. And I see another question up about bringing together focus groups that diverse and representative. This kind of answers it. I would ask your friends, I would ask the employees' friends, I would ask your board of directors, I would ask any of your fans that are on social media. I would ask all of them to come together and to help you decide which is the proper logo and colors and name to use for, whether it be a new product or a company name change.
All right, it looks like that's all the questions we have today. If you have any additional questions, please email them to ritalum@rit.edu or tweet them to @RIT_alumni with the hashtag #MeRITWebinars, and we will direct those questions to Cheri. Please know, again, that the recording will be available complete with captions within the next week. So please look for that in your email. And actually, I do see one more question that came in from Molly. Molly asks, is marketing for millennials different from traditional marketing?
Molly, it is to a certain degree. I've never been a big fan of grouping people and profiling people, but it definitely it works in marketing. Traditional marketing is seen by mostly people that still love their paper, that still get their actual magazines and don't read their magazines on the iPad. And millennials definitely pay more attention to internet marketing. It depends on the demographics of your customers. So you'd be surprised how many grandparents are on Facebook. So don't think that you know who the demographics are of a certain ad outlet. Do the research. The companies will provide this to you. They want you to advertise with them, but they will definitely be able to provide you with which information. You need to advertise where your customers are or where you want your customers to be at.
Okay, so we have some webinars coming up. We hope you will join us for these next ones. On Wednesday, November 12th, Susan Foley will discuss what it takes to be an entrepreneur inside of an organization. And on Thursday, November 13th, Bob Whipple will discuss how to build trust in an organization. And you can register for these webinars at rit.webex.com.